it was starting even back 50 years ago, this whole thing about cholesterol. I just said, well, cholesterol, what are you talking about? Like cholesterol, your body can't live without cholesterol.
I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution. Welcome back to another installment of Guru Talk. I'm Dave Palumbo. Today we have a really cool interview planned with Dr. Anthony Martin. He has a PhD in clinical medicine and nutrition, and I'm really excited to get him here today because we're going to be talking about a topic that is super controversial in today's world. That's cholesterol. What is good cholesterol? What's bad cholesterol? Is cholesterol going to give you a heart attack? He's going to answer some questions in a very controversial way. I can't wait to get to this interview. Without further ado, what's up, Dr. Martin?
Dave, nice to be with you, and it's my privilege to join you today. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. I was listening to a podcast you're on, and I was like, everything you were saying was like sounding off these bells in my head, and I was like, wow, I've been saying this for years, and it's so good to hear a professional saying the same thing. And I think that, I read a lot of blood work from bodybuilders. All the bodybuilders in the industry send me their blood work. And I see on a lot of bodybuilders, high LDL cholesterol, normal triglycerides, and I send them for cardiac CT scans, and they all have no blockages in their arteries. And I'm like, what? And all these doctors want to put them on statins, and they're scaring them, and they're all afraid they're gonna die prematurely, yet they have no inkling of any cardiovascular disease. What's going on?
Well, Dave, that I've been hearing this for 50 years. Mm-hmm. I've really been screaming like John the Baptist for a long time about, I hate to call it a hoax, but Dave, really, I've never seen almost anything in this world that has been driven by misinformation like this. I mean, look, in May 1st today, so in May, 50 years in practice.
Wow.
And you mentioned something earlier. Yeah, like I had to undo all my studies, especially in nutrition, okay?
Yeah, I asked him, I said, how much did you actually learn when you got your PhD in nutrition? He said nothing.
Like you got to undo it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, though, it was starting even back 50 years ago, this whole thing about cholesterol. And it bothered me in this sense. I mean, not that I was a biologist, but of course, you have to take a fair amount of biology, but, I just said, well, cholesterol, what are you talking about? Like cholesterol, your body can't live without cholesterol.
Right.
And
so where did this whole villainization of LDL cholesterol come from?
Well, it really comes from finding a medication. You got to even go back farther than that, Dave. You got to go back to, your American president, Dwight Eisenhower, had a heart attack. Mm-hmm. He was playing golf in 1956, and in a sand trap, he just collapsed, right?
Wow, yeah.
But there was a guy that I remember because he actually hit, he made it such big time that he was on the cover of Time magazine in 1966. But when Eisenhower had a heart attack in 1956, one guru, he was a pathologist, he was no dummy or whatever.
Right.
He said, I'm going to tell you why Dwight Eisenhower, the president, had a heart attack. He said, it's cholesterol. And what? You know, like, and then, but it sort of stuck, because you had to understand that at the same time, there was a big movement. When I was a kid, born in 1952, the big movement in food was towards cereal, getting away from bacon and eggs, getting away from the farmer's breakfast to Kellogg's, right?
Yeah, all sugar.
You know, and then those two combining factors, Kellogg's, who was a physician, Dr. Kellogg's, I mean, he believed that cholesterol, you know, and meat were, you know, they were going to give you testosterone. He didn't want that. Dave, he would have hated you.
Why were they anti-testosterone back then? I thought they wanted testosterone back then, no?
He would have hated you. Anyway, all I'm saying is, like, it started with that. And by the time I got to school in the late 1960s, early 1970s, cholesterol was starting to come on scene as positive. You know, it always amazes me that this Ansel Keys, the guy I was telling you about that hit the front of cover of Time magazine, Dwight Eisenhower was smoking 4 packs of cigarettes a day.
Because from being in the military, yeah, exactly, right?
You know what I mean? Like 4 packs of cigarettes a day. And that wasn't even in the equation of why he might have had a heart attack.
Right.
Anyway, it started with that. It was the cereal. Then it went to butter. And you don't use butter, use margarine. And this was all the days that I was in school. And I'm telling you, Dave, I was like John the Baptist, screaming. That's crazy. That's crazy.
So they were trying to switch people. So it seemed like they were trying to switch people off of animal products to plant products, even though they didn't know they were making the situation worse, basically.
Exactly. And it wasn't true. It's not true today. It wasn't true then. And, but, you know, and then, you know, it wasn't long after that, they actually found a medication to lower LDL cholesterol. And then cholesterol really became the boogeyman.
Right.
And I mean, it works. They'll lower your cholesterol. You want to lower your cholesterol? Take a statin drug. Lipitor became the #1 selling medication of all time.
Wow.
Imagine, you know, I wish I would have invested and put some money in it.
You were against it. You were telling them they were crazy. So,
but I could have still invested in it. But all I'm saying, Dave, is like that took off.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter now that the ship left the dock, and medical schools. And I've taught in the few. I'm telling you, hook, line, and sinker on cholesterol. And that became the boogeyman, and that was the #1 cause of heart disease.
Yeah.
And like I said, I never bought it, but, you know, I was just a little guy here in Canada in a private practice and sometimes, a clinical setting, teaching.
Mm-hmm.
But who was listening to me, Dave? Not many.
Right.
So that's really, and then, here we are today in 2024. I just read something off the Journal of American Medical. So it just came out on April the 24th.
Right.
We are losing the war on heart disease. Well, no wonder. We're looking, Dave, for all the love in the wrong places.
Well, you know what? I got to tell this story just because it's relevant, because you'll get a kick out of it. So I had an enlarged aorta. I had it repaired last March, and I was on the cardiac ward of the hospital, obviously. And when I got out of surgery, they put me on the cardiac diet. Okay, which is stupid because I didn't really have a blockage at all. But
yeah,
so the cardiac diet is basically no fat. It's very low protein, and it's all sugar and carbs, basically.
Yeah.
Which is probably what's causing the heart disease to begin with. But that's the diet they put me on, with no salt. You know, I'm like, listen, I didn't have any blockages here. I don't have a cholesterol problem. I said, I don't know what you guys are doing. I said, I'm not eating this crap. I said, I'm not eating blueberry muffins. Sorry, for breakfast. You know, it's unbelievable the lack of knowledge when it comes to what's going on. So,
well, Dave, you know,
who made
Dave,
these recommendations? I don't get it. Where did this come from?
Think about it, Dave. Okay, you have a pharmaceutical industry and medical industry that knows nothing about nutrition,
right?
Really. And then you have a big food industry that cares nothing about your health. So if you put those two together, like you talk about a bad combination.
You know what the funny thing is also? They put me on a statin when I got out. They were bringing me a statin. I said, wait a second. What is this you're giving me? Oh, we're giving you like whatever, Lipitor. I said, why? I said, I don't have any blockages or any cholesterol. Matter of fact, I have low cholesterol and low triglycerides. They're like, I don't know, just take it. Everyone gets it here. I'm like, no, this is not orange juice. I said, I don't want it. I said,
it's like candy. And you know, Dave, just to tell you a story too, that I had a very good friend of mine, cardiologist. And he told me, like in Canada, it may be different than in the United States, but the College of Physicians and Surgeons, if someone has a heart attack,
right,
they get a cocktail. And if a physician doesn't give that cocktail to a patient that's had a heart attack, whether their cholesterol is normal or not,
right,
they can lose their medical license.
Wow. So it's like malpractice, they're calling it. Wow.
You know, it's like they give it to you, and you know, it's amazing to me that here we are, like I said, in 2024, and I read JAMA, you know, the Journal of American Medical Association Cardiology, and they say, guess what? We're losing the war on heart disease.
Why is that?
It's still the #1 killer in our society.
Why is that?
Well, I'll tell you. There's a couple of things. One, food. Yeah. I mean that. Like, you know, there's genetics for sure. Okay, like look at my face, Dave. I got diabetes coming out both ears. My dad was a diabetic. My grandfather was a diabetic. My sister's a diabetic. I got a brother diabetic. Diabetes. And yeah, I mean, I know I got a weakness towards that, but genetics, you know, it's a percent. I give people that. But nutrition is the foundation, Dave.
Right.
And I'm going to give you some good news in a minute.
Okay.
But nutrition is the foundation. It's food. It's the choices. I've watched a paradigm shift, Dave, you wouldn't believe. Like, I've been around long enough, but especially since about 1980, with the introduction of high fructose corn syrup.
Oh, yeah, it killed everything.
And I mean, you should have heard me screaming then, Dave, because I always had a radio show. Like,
wow, okay.
For a long time in Canada, I had a syndicated radio show, and I'd get a migraine every day with the amount of sugar people drink.
Dr. Scott Connolly, who invented the product Metrex, which is one of my mentors. I worked for him. He wrote a book called Body RX, where he called high fructose corn syrup the F word in nutrition, and equated it to poisoning the water, the drinking water of all the wells that everyone drank from, by them putting that into the food source supply. He said,
I call it the Antichrist of sugars, Dave. Like it, because it's, you know, fructose, you know, oh, good for you. No, wait a minute. First of all, it's a liquid, and it goes in a nanosecond to your liver. And I mean, my practice, Dave, I'm like you. I analyze blood work all the time. I mean, I wasn't guessing. I mean, I would tell people, look, I just took all of your biomarkers, your blood tests, and I would look at, you know, triglycerides. It's not that I didn't look at cholesterol. I did.
Right.
I wanted to see what your HDL was, because
can I stop you for a second? Can you explain to the viewers out there what triglycerides are and what they're an indication of? Because the word triglyceride to most people just means fat, but what does it mean when you're reading someone's triglycerides in their bloodstream? Explain that.
Well, listen, I'm glad you asked, because I always told people, look, triglycerides, 3 fat balls.
Right.
And you get fat balls by eating sugar mostly, and especially fructose.
Which is interesting. But it's an interesting thing, because it's not by eating fat that you get triglycerides in the bloodstream. It's by eating sugar. Reiterate
Dave,
that.
If you eat fat, your triglycerides are going to go down.
Now, why is that, though? Explain.
Well, listen, because look, I always call your liver the Costco parking lot. It's always full. Okay?
Right.
And when your liver is full of fat because you're a carboholic or you love sugar,
right,
and especially high fructose corn syrup,
right,
your body compensates for that by getting rid of triglycerides into the bloodstream. I mean, it's normal to have triglycerides in your bloodstream,
right,
but it's never normal to have high triglycerides in your bloodstream.
Right.
And the only way that happens is if your liver is full of fat.
Right.
So when the liver, and you get fatty liver, you can get fatty liver in 5 days.
Really?
Just eat a crappy diet of sugar and carbohydrates, like those crappy carbs with those bad oils.
Right.
And you'll get the start of a fatty liver in 5 days.
Is it
That's
reversible?
how fast, David, happens. Do you know how many kids, Dave, are walking around? They have no idea because they have no symptoms. Are walking around with a fatty liver.
I believe it. Is it reversible?
Oh, 100%.
What do you do? Just lower
the
carb
good
intake?
news, Dave. The good news is coming.
All right.
But okay, so what happens? The body empties, the liver empties those triglycerides into the bloodstream, and you better have HDL. I call them FedEx trucks or
I call them vacuum
trucks
cleaners
on the highways.
Yeah,
and
vacuum cleaners.
They hitch their wagon to those triglycerides and bring them back to the liver for processing. And if you have low cholesterol, like your good stuff, especially good. I think cholesterol is all good, but I'm really, really high on HDL. And that, when you look at blood work, if your HDL is low and your triglycerides are high, you're in deep doo-doo, Dave.
Right.
Because now you are asking for a heart attack. And that's why I love blood work, because, and the CT scan, of course, I'm all for that, and looking for plaque and all that for sure. But I can look at somebody's blood work, and within a minute, I look at their triglycerides. If they're high and their HDL is low, I tell them, you are heading for disaster. You're on the Titanic.
Yeah. All right. So let me stop you for 1 second, because I want to ask you a question, because a lot of people come to me, bodybuilders tend to take anabolic steroids. All right. So it seems to suppress HDL cholesterol, but a lot of these guys have very low LDL cholesterol and they have very low triglycerides, so they're not at risk. But what about when you have this scenario like you're talking about, higher triglycerides? And so let me rephrase this. So the idea of I always thought the HDL cholesterol would clean up the LDL cholesterol, but what you're saying is it cleans up the triglycerides. Well,
that's its primary purpose.
Because you're saying the LDL cholesterol is really not a problem if it's high.
No, I never, Dave, I could never equate that in real practice in terms of heart disease.
Right.
I mean, if you look at people, and I followed people for years, and if their LDL was high, I never equated that with the risk of heart disease. So it's not like I dismissed it. But I would tell them, look, you're taking a statin that's going to lower your LDL. It'll do nothing really for your triglycerides, and it's certainly not going. You wouldn't want to lower your HDL. So Like that's why I was saying that we're aiming, Dave, in my opinion, at the wrong
target. So what do you think
all along?
What do you think LDL cholesterol job is in the body? Because we know HDL cleans up triglycerides. What is LDL there for, you think?
Well, I'll tell you, if you have low LDL, this again is my experience.
Yeah.
You've got a malfunctioning immune system. I see LDL as more of an immune booster.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it has it's in your blood vessels. I always used to say, look, you're blaming cholesterol as the bad guy because they're at the crime scene. I mean, but the police are not the bad guys.
Right.
And of course, because cholesterol is such a repair mechanism, cholesterol is there. It's going to be at a plaque. It's going to be at a damaged blood vessel, but it's not the bad guy. And when your LDL is suppressed, the problem is it doesn't even put a dent into heart disease. If it did, we'd have got rid of it by now. There would be like almost, Dave, it went so far as that in the British Parliament, they actually had a bill. They were going to put statin drugs in the drinking water in the United Kingdom. And you know what? Thank God it failed.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I'm telling you.
That's insane.
I'm serious.
That's insane. It's insane. So you're saying that, so what do you think causes the plaque formation? You think it's the high triglycerides?
It's part of it. I think, Dave, and you know this because of your background too. One of the biggest things that in medicine that we never talk about or rarely talk about is an inflammatory process.
Right.
Okay. What causes inflammation? And inflammation, Dave, if you kick me in the knee, okay, like that's your body's ambulance system. It rushes to the site and you rub your knee and, that's inflammation. But if that inflammation stays, now that ambulance system becomes very destructive. And I always talk about inflammation. Listen, back in the, what year was it? We started in my clinic looking at CRP, C-reactive protein, which is a test to determine the amount of silent inflammation you have in the body. Okay. And that is a big factor, Dave. Now let me put this in context. Inflammation is not Houdini. There's something causing inflammation in the body, and inflammation is very destructive after a period of time because of the cytokines and all the things, the ambulance, extra protein, enzymes, they come to the area and they can start in a blood vessel. You start losing the Teflon layer, of the endothelial layer of your blood vessels. It gets sticky because of inflammation. And then you get a plaque forming and you get, a calcium forming there, and cholesterol comes to repair the damage.
Right.
But if you lower your cholesterol, it's not helping that plaque whatsoever. And I'm a big guy on lowering all inflammation markers. One of the ways, cut your sugar out of your diet.
Right.
Sugar is so destructive, Dave. And your body knows that because you have an organ dedicated to lowering your blood sugar. Like blood sugar, it can't stay in your bloodstream. Have 20 donuts. Don't do it, but this has been done. You have 20 donuts, and within an hour, your blood sugar, unless you're diabetic, will come back down to normal levels. Why is that? Because insulin's going, hey, sugar, you can't park there. No parking zone. Sugar can't stay in the bloodstream because it's so destructive. It's just the first thing that it destroys, Dave, is sugar. It destroys blood vessels. It starts with capillaries.
Yeah.
And that's why people with diabetics, just ask a diabetic. They got trouble with their eyes. They got trouble with their heart. They got trouble with their kidneys. They got trouble with circulation. It's sugar. It's
Right.
sugar. Sugar is so toxic and so inflammatory. And that's me. You see, I come to food. And anything too, Dave, of course, that turns to sugar rapidly. Bread, pasta, rice,
Right.
cereal, sugar, sweets, pastries, juice, all that. It turns to sugar in like that. And that's your body it's got to really move fast. Sugar out, puts it in the liver. Look, unless you got pipes.
Right.
If you got pipes,
muscle.
Dave, why do you think I love you so much? Look at your pipes. Because I try and tell people, muscle. I said, though, you got an endocrine organ. Okay, because nobody talks about this, Dave, but you do. I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
You have an endocrine organ, like a thyroid, your test, your adrenals and all that. They're all endocrine, right?
Yeah.
But your muscles are endocrine. Because if your insulin that has to store sugar, if you have bins, if you have guns, if you have a place, get strong, because it's so important metabolically. Besides food, muscles are the best thing you can do to protect yourself from the damage of that glucose and fatty liver. And as long as you got storage space, I love that, and I've been preaching that, Dave, for a long time. Telling people, get strong, get strong, get strong.
Like I say, it's like a gas tank in your body. As long as the gas tank is not filled up and there's place to put the sugar, then you're fine. It's when there's no place because you're eating too many carbs that your body has a problem. So
yeah, your liver gets full, Dave, and then your body has an unbelievable ability to make fat cells.
Right.
I always tell people, look. And I'm a big guy, Dave, on metabolic syndrome. Okay. Mm-hmm. So here's what I mean by that. Okay. Metabolic syndrome, 93% of the population, unbelievable, has some form of metabolic syndrome, meaning them and carbs don't get along.
Right.
93%.
I believe it.
And they have a condition called insulin resistance.
Right.
Okay? And how do we know that? Well, metabolic syndrome, you can actually diagnose it. It's not hard to diagnose, because if your triglycerides are high, your HDL is low,
right?
You have even normal but high blood sugar,
right?
If you have belly fat, and if you have, I put uric acid in there too.
High uric acid.
That's metabolic syndrome. High blood pressure. Dave, 50% of the population have high blood pressure.
Right.
And they have no clue. Oh, it's salt. No, it's not salt. You're blaming salt for what sugar's doing.
Yeah, but it's interesting that you say that, because, you look at the average population of people, and you're right. They're probably insulin resistant. I have, because of looking at all these bodybuilders' blood work, and I see these guys, they eat right. They're not eating sugar. They're not eating high carbs, but they eat 5 or 6 times a day, small portions, but they're eating, a lot of food. And I noticed that as these bodybuilders get older, they might have normal LDL, they have normal triglycerides, their HDLs are okay. But what's happening is they're just not producing enough insulin. And in those individuals, they don't have any signs of metabolic syndrome, but yet they still are running high fasting blood sugars. And my theory on that is because they just don't make enough insulin. And I think almost like we replace testosterone as men get older, we almost have to think about insulin replacement, like long-acting insulin replacement. Because like you said, the high blood sugars, and they're showing this, even a little high over an extended period of time, are causing dementia, eye vision problems, neuropathies, because that blood sugar accumulates, right?
Yeah. Dave, 2005. What did they call Alzheimer's? Type 3 diabetes.
That's right.
I specialize in that. My biggest thing
was
metabolic syndrome, because I used to test it.
Right.
And I said, man, you are in trouble.
Yeah.
You got to turn this around. But Dave, what you're saying, and I really appreciate that, because of any bodybuilders that I not only respect, a lot of respect for them, but I did a lot of counseling with them.
Okay.
A lot of blood work with them, and making them. But I said, look, you guys, and you ladies, you're so far ahead of the curve.
Right.
Okay. That, again, because of muscle and what we know, Dave, today about muscle compared to what we used to know.
Right.
I mean, but I was always a proponent of it because I could measure stuff. And I think, Dave, like what you brought out about, as they get older and they need more insulin. Yeah. And you would, listen, modern medicine is wonderful. I mean, think of antibiotics and even think of the discovery of insulin. Right. I mean, it saved millions and millions of people's lives. I'm not against that at all. It's when the medicine, like I said, they're so poorly trained in nutrition that here's a pill, or then we put you on we put you on metformin, and then that's only
doesn't do anything.
Which doesn't do anything. Yeah.
Why do you think that they're not going back and saying, you know what? We haven't solved heart disease. We obviously don't have it right. And the recommendations that we have out there to eat a low fat, high carb diet, or, are just not working. It's the cardiac diet doesn't work. We failed. Why don't we go back and figure out what does work? And let's start training physicians in teaching people how to eat properly and changing their lifestyle choices so that we can fix and cure this problem of heart disease, because heart disease is 100% curable. It's way more curable than cancer is. And like you said, it's mostly diet related,
It's metabolic.
Why don't they do this? What's the resistance against this?
Well, look, I mean, you got a lot of resistance. And look, one of my passions, Dave, is like you. You're an information guru, right? You to the people that you can influence, Dave, you have no idea. Well, I think you do, but you make a big difference in people, because I always tell people I'm not so much preaching to the world. I'm not that optimistic, Dave, in my lifetime that I'm going to be able to change what's going on. But what I do is I'm an educator. So I figure if I can educate on the truth of nutrition, and not everybody buys it, because doc, I thought you were going to give me a pill. No, you got to go home. You got to go home and you got to learn how to say no. And you gotta, and you gotta be disciplined. And look, there's no easy thing, but if you're educated, so Dave, you have no idea how you, as an individual, because of the venue that you have, you are changing, first of all, individuals, and then they, when information, Dave, is so powerful. And you are powerful, Dave. And that's why, like, for me, I've been blessed. I have a podcast, and I have, we've got, I think, over 4 million downloads and this kind of thing. I'm just a little wee guy in Northern Ontario, Canadian, imagine. But Dave, I tell people, you change. And then to the extent you can influence family, friends, and associates or whatever, you'll make a change. Because Dave, to go after big pharma, to change big food.
Right.
No, I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I'm just saying I'd be angry all the time.
I don't know if you listen to RFK Jr. RFK Jr. talks about that, and he's like,
I love him.
He says the first thing I'm going to do if I get elected president, I'm going to go to NIH and I'm going to say, stop all this BS research you're doing on funding pharmaceutical companies. Let's figure out why people are dying, why we have the worst death rate of any country in the world, in this country.
Yeah.
it's obviously something that we're being either poisoned with, or it's diet, and I think it's diet related. Like you do.
Yeah.
And
well,
that's the wrong information.
That's the thing you can control. What you can control is what you put in your mouth every day.
Right. Now,
and so, like, to me, if you do that, and listen, Dave, I mean, my dad, you got to understand, I'm in high school and my dad comes home and my dad's a doctor. And I just adored him.
Right.
And he says, I'm a diabetic. 1968. I'm 16 or 17. And what? What's that mean? All I knew is my grandfather died of it.
Right.
So Dad's a diabetic. The next day, Dave, he was wearing out the carpet in our living room, jogging on the spot. And Dave, listen to this. He ate steak 6 days a week.
Right.
1968, David.
Right.
And roast beef on Sundays. And I said, Dad, okay? And remember, I was on my way to go to school.
Right.
I said, Dad, why are you doing that? He said, son, I have sugar diabetes. What? Yeah, diabetic. I'm a sugar diabetic. Because that's what they used to call it.
Right.
And, and you think they're stupid? They go, no, it's type 2 adult onset diabetes.
Right.
I mean, so it had nothing to do with food? Yeah. You bet your boots it does.
Yeah.
And so, listen, I went to school. I knew the stuff they were teaching. My dad ate steak every day.
Right. How did his diabetes?
You're not sick of it? No, I love it.
Yeah. That's funny.
I love it.
Well, he was obviously very regimented. He was able to do that.
Oh, the most disciplined person you ever met.
Let's get back to blood work for a minute. So I got these guys and women that send me their blood work. They have high LDLs, normal triglycerides, most of them. Doctors want to put them on statins. I send them for a cardiac CT scan. They're clear. Zero blockages, not even a little. No blockage in the coronary arteries. What do you advise a person to do in that case? Obviously, I tell them I wouldn't take a statin if I were you in that situation. Dave,
we got supplements that are the best things in the world. If it was, if everything was equal and people would just be honest, I would show people you take a high DHA or EPA too. I love EPA. I'm a big guy on DHA for this. Okay,
right.
I like this. I go like this, Dave. Like the sign of the cross almost. Because I said that's what DHA for it. Because you want DHA for your brain because your brain's made up of DHA.
Yeah.
And Dave, I'm 72 years old. I want to protect my nerves.
No, you're sharp as a tack too, so it's obviously working. Yeah.
and then I point at my heart, right? Like I go, okay, if they were
DHA, EPA,
if you took a fish oil, a quality fish oil. Let me tell you one little story, Dave. Yeah. I'm teaching, when physicians have to get their education every year.
Yeah, continue.
So I work for a company that would set up these seminars so that they can come in 2 days and get almost all their education for a year, gotcha. Postgraduate stuff and all that. Anyway, here's what I would do. Because they'd always invite me because I had a big mouth. And number two, I was, they used to like my comedy. So I said, okay, put your hand. And there was at least 200 cardiologists at this one time. I said, put your hand up if you take omega-3. I mean, David, this is 25 years ago.
All right, right. No one did it, yeah.
Well, no, you should have seen.
Yeah.
The hands come up. I mean, 3/4 put their hand up. I take it. I said, how many of you recommend that to your patients?
None.
All the hands went down.
Yeah.
I think there was one guy. I said, you bunch of hypocrites. You know what omega-3 does. There's no question about it. What it does, because it lowers inflammation, David.
Yep.
It lubricates your blood vessels. It's so powerful in repair. And I would put it up against anything when it comes to heart disease is an omega-3. And guy, look, I mean, I like higher
and insulin
quality,
sensitivity too.
Yeah. Dave, the answer, we have it.
Yeah.
Cut out your sugar. Get bins. Okay? Get muscle, get strong, and take omega-3. Look, I love vitamin D too. I've talked about that a lot. I'm a big guy on vitamin D in the heart because you're a human solar panel. You know, you need, the sun. You need, you live in Florida, for heaven's sake. I tell my Floridians, okay? I said, you bunch of bums. I said, you live in Florida and you got low levels of vitamin D. What kind of crazy
they tell you the sun is bad for you. No one, they don't want you going in the sun. All the dermatologists tell you not cover up, sunscreens, everything.
Anyways, I shake my head. But Dave, we have the answers.
Yeah. No, I tell people that all the time. Yeah. I have a product actually from my Species nutrition line called Omega Lize. It's 3 grams of fish oil, and then I also use the omega-6 GLAs, which are good anti-inflammatories as well.
But the good one, Dave.
Yeah. And then and then we also use palmitoleic acid, which is another great anti-inflammatory. And so it's like the perfect, essential fatty acid supplement. And I tell people that's magic, and people can't get that from their diet. It's hard to get that much, unless you're eating wild caught fish, and omega-3 eggs, and it's easier to take a supplement for me.
Oh yeah. Hey, I tell people I have fish every day in a capsule.
Exactly. Hey, well, what would you say is the most important thing when you're going to the doctor? Because a lot of people are scared. They're like very scared. If you can just give some words of wisdom to the people when they want to check out what their status is on their body. What is the most important? Blood work to get done, diagnostic tests, so that they know that they're healthy and they're not going to be another victim of a heart attack,
Yeah, and Dave, I have 8 tests that I tell people to get, just make sure you get this, because metabolically it will cover all of it, okay? And here they are. I'll just give them.
Yeah.
Of course, your lipid profile. You want to get especially doctors do that without even asking usually.
Sure.
So you want your, what I'm looking at, I want to see your triglycerides. I want to see your HDL. I want to see your uric acid. I think that's very important.
Okay.
I think it's a real marker for inflammation.
Right.
I think it's a real marker for insulin resistance. I like CRP, C-reactive protein.
Right.
Now, doctors won't do it. You got to ask.
Got to ask them. Yeah, you got to ask.
Because that will tell you years ahead of time, Dave. If you've got an inflammatory, and it could be silent, you have no symptoms.
Right. But
that silent killer, inflammation, you can measure it by CRP, C-reactive protein.
Yeah.
So you got to ask. And I like ferritin. Okay,
which is
you a
iron.
Big clue. I'm big on B12.
Why do you like ferritin? What are you finding out?
Well, I see ferritin, Dave. Okay, people that have high ferritin, usually they're loading up on iron. It's a clue for me that they have fatty liver.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, that's why. Look, I mean, there's other reasons to take ferritin. But in my office, when I saw high ferritin, I used to tell you, man, you got a fatty liver, and you don't know it, but you're going to be in deep trouble. And sure enough, usually with ferritin, their triglycerides were through the roof.
Really?
And their HDL was low.
But I thought ferritin is mostly related to iron status, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is. Where does iron accumulate? In the liver.
Oh, okay. All right. I got you. Okay. So it's just giving you the status of your liver health.
I mean, look, it gives you other things for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's an iron status. But if I wasn't worried. Well, look, if you had low iron, of course. But high iron, Dave, I always looked at that liver and I said, man, you got trouble there. And again, it was silent. They had no idea. Right.
So you're saying ferritin, uric acid,
CRP, vitamin D, B12.
Okay.
Those are important vitamins metabolically.
Gotcha.
Very, very important.
What about you? The new thing I seem to be looking into a lot is folic acid too.
Yeah, folic acid. Yep.
because if you don't methylate your folic acid, that's a problem as well. A lot of people have.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? Chronically, you know, I mean, here's 80% of the population are probably low in folic acid.
Yeah, I tell people to take a methylated folic acid supplement. I know Life Extension makes methylfolate or optimized folate, which is a better form of folic acid because it's already activated. You know, same thing with the my multi-mineral and multivitamin product has a methylated cobalamin. You know, which is
and that's the best.
Yeah,
that's the one your body absorbs, right?
Yep.
But metabolically, Dave, and when they're low in vitamin D, they're I mean, you know, those are you need optimized vitamin D. Right. I always tell people, like, you should be above 60 in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
You know, and you're in the sun, so you got no excuse.
You know what? Yeah, but you know what? The sun is not, unless your shirt is off and you're exposed, you're not going to get the vitamin D you think you're getting just because your face is getting tan. You know what I mean? So.
My friend, I had a friend, still a friend, Dr. Rona. He said, unless you're butt naked.
I didn't want to go that extreme, but yeah, I heard that too. Yeah, unless you're streaking in the nude, you're not going to get enough.
He said, unless you're butt naked, you're not going to get enough vitamin D from the sun.
But you know what? Ask people how they feel after they tan for a few days, like on vacation. They think it's the vacation that makes them feel good. It's actually the vitamin D3, I think. You know,
100%. Yeah. And I measured it, Dave. So I mean, I was always looking at it, and you know, and convincing them. I said, look, you think cholesterol is the boogeyman and you think the sun is the boogeyman. It's not. You know, you need that. You're a solar panel.
All right. Well,
yeah, those are the metabolic tests, Dave. If you get that done, you know, I like thyroid too. I looked at TSH and all that. But I mean, the ones that I mentioned are the ones that'll give you the best indicator just where you're at. Oh, hey, one more. I forgot. A1C.
A1C, average blood sugar.
I'm huge on A1C because it's sort of the poor man's test of your insulin. Right. You know, like you can get a fasting insulin, of course, but if they don't do that, if you give me an A1C, oh man, I said, man, you got insulin resistance. Anything over 5.4, I said, you got insulin resistance.
I agree. And I tell people to go and get a blood sugar monitor and test their fasting blood sugars in the morning. Why not?
Why not? It's easy.
Right. It's cheap. Walmart sells blood sugar monitors for $9. How do you not have one? $9.
I know.
I mean, it's a joke. Years ago, they were over $100 a piece. You know.
Yeah. So. And you don't have to guess. You know, and you watch when you eat, and just watch your blood sugars and measure it. You know, you'll find out. Oh, hey, I don't do so well with that food. You know? Right.
Well, take home message here. At least what I learned is that HDL is very important. You want your triglycerides low. That's important. And it seems like if those two things are optimized, your chances of having heart disease are pretty low. Would you assume?
Very low.
That? Yeah.
Yeah. Dave, I tell you, it's almost 100% proof.
Right.
And with thousands and tens of thousands of patients over the years, I just tell you, it was, you know, look, you can get hit by a bus. I know that. But if you want to protect yourself from a heart attack, those two, you get those triglycerides down and you get that HDL up, and boy, oh boy, you're doing everything really that you can do.
And Dr. Martin, the funny thing is that the thing that raises HDL, you know, is exercise and, you know, good essential fatty acid intake. And the thing that lowers triglycerides is low carb diet, which is what they advocate the exact opposite for. And
exactly.
So they're saying eat high carbs, don't eat fat in your diet, and you won't get a heart attack. Meanwhile, that's exactly what's going to cause a heart attack. It's
100%. Dave, 100%. And then you go in the hospital, like you say, and they give you they give you
blueberry muffins. And and well, you know what? They give you a blueberry muffin, but they do give you a statin to try to erase it, you know.
Like I used to laugh at, you know, in cancer, like, you know, they give you Ensure, but I said, that's ensuring your cancer.
Yes, it's Ensure with all the sugar in there. Oh my God. We should do another show on cancer because that's another big topic I want to talk about. Yeah. I'd love to get you back. I really appreciate you coming on here and educating our viewership. And this is some
Dave, it's like we're long-lost brothers.
Yes, I think we are.
Thank you very much, Dave, for having me on. It was a joy.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Martin. If people want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
martinclinic.com, or the Doctor is In podcast. They can go and, look, I'm a senior. Smart device, whatever that means. They can download that. And
The Doctor is
enjoy.
In. That's the podcast I listen to. So check it out. Great information on there. Thank you, Dr. Martin, for stopping by.
Thank you, Dave.
And that's going to do it for today here at RX Muscles Guru Talk. I'm Dave Palumbo with Dr. Martin. We'll see you next time.